What's the best way to handle office politics? Well, you might be surprised by the answer to this question, but I'm going to walk you through several steps in how to handle dealing with office politics. And at the end, hopefully, you'll have a sense of how to navigate kind of these more tricky situations at work while not falling behind others who are using office politics to their advantage and not yours. My name is Tom, and I'm the founder of Vertical Motion, where we help mid-career professionals become executives. If that's interesting to you, there is a link down below in the description where you can watch a video that explains the process by which we teach people. Book a call with me to have a conversation one-to-one on what it might look like for you to take that next step in your career. But for now, let's get back to the topic, which is how to deal with office politics. So first of all, I want to define the term office politics. But what exactly is office politics? Office politics refer to the complex and usually subtle power struggles and social cues that are happening in the workplace around you, where there's kind of like this hierarchical setting where there's different people influencing different people, regardless of their title or rank in the organization. There are people who influence each other or work together collaboratively to make something happen that's beneficial to the group of them or the both of them or whatever it is. When you are on the outside looking into a situation where people are working together to create some positive change for themselves, that is when you call it office politics. When you are the one doing the actual influencing or manipulation in order to create that, hey, that's just business, right? So understand that right away, the term office politics refers to a social dynamic that happens in every culture, in every workplace, regardless of what kind of environment it is, because human nature is this way. We are tribal. We are designed to build alliances and teams and work with people that are going to help us get to our goal. And so it's normal for this to happen. And it's only referred to as office politics when someone else is gaining something and they're using quote unquote office politics. So just understand that office politics refers to one person's perspective into a dynamic that may or may not be appropriate, but exists nonetheless because of human nature. And to say it a little bit more clearly, I'll say that there are good office politics and there are bad office politics. And what is the difference? Good office politics is when people are trying to influence the greater good. They're trying to influence a decision towards the greater good of the company, of the community, of whatever. Bad office politics are when people are manipulating situations for their own personal gain. And if they band together, if 2 or 3 executives band together to manipulate a situation for their own personal gain, that is bad office politics. So really, at the end of the day, it comes back to what I talk about all the time. What really is happening here is human social dynamics of the difference between leadership and manipulation. Leaders influence others for the greater cause or for the greater good. Manipulators influence people, but only for their own personal gain. And they have no regard usually for what the greater good is. It's only what's important to them. And so it comes back to, are you a leader or are you a manipulator? The problem that you're having with office politics is that you are probably a leader in training. You're someone who wants to become an executive, and you are the kind of person who wants to lead and influence people in a positive way. And you're watching people who are manipulating the system move ahead because they're using quote unquote office politics in order to do so. And so that's where the stigma for office politics comes from. Just understand that it's frustrating to be on the outside looking in when you're watching manipulators band together and actually make headway in moving the needle towards whatever their goal is. So with all that said, how do you handle office politics? Well, here's 5 steps that are going to help you deal with office politics in a way that is probably the most authentic and comfortable way that you can. Now, other people will teach you manipulation tactics. I don't do that. I don't believe manipulation is the same thing as leadership. So in this channel, we only talk about leadership tactics. We don't talk about manipulation tactics. My goal is to teach people how to become authentic, empathetic, and audacious leaders who lead a group of people towards a greater cause or a common good. So I won't really spend any time talking about manipulation tactics because that's just not the kind of people that we want to be. With that, here are 5 ways that you can handle office politics in your organization, or especially when you move to a new organization, how to avoid them altogether. Number 1, you want to define your moral values and your core beliefs very clearly. You want people to understand in a very clear way what is important to you, What are your moral values? What are your ethics? What are the things that you believe in? And this doesn't mean that you have to like lay out or there for everyone to know all of your political and religious opinions. That's not the point. The point is that generally speaking, if you are someone who has a high ethical code, you believe that there shouldn't be any shenanigans in business, then make that very clear that you're not somebody that would want to get involved in anything that's manipulative. So you right away are just kind of declaring yourself as, I'm a good person, I do the right thing, I follow the rules because they're to protect all of us from getting in trouble or going to jail, and I'm going to play the game fair. Yes, playing the game fair means that you may lose to people who cheat the system, but they always get caught at some point. They always do. And at the end of the day, you have to wake up in the morning and think about what kind of person you're going to be that day. Are you the person who does the right thing, or are you the person who does the wrong thing and gets ahead? Look, that's a decision we all make here, but if you have strong moral and ethical beliefs, make sure that everybody in your organization is aware of them. Be that moral compass for others to look at as a guidepost, as someone who they can look up to and say, like, yes, this is a moral person. I like this person. I want to be like her. And understand that you will be tested. People will test how strong your moral and ethical beliefs really are. So understand that as you define yourself as someone with strong ethics, just know that there will be moments where you'll be tested on whether you actually have these high standards or if they're just words that you're saying. Number two is to have strong opinions loosely held. So what I mean by this is the idea that you have a strong opinion on something. There's a project that you feel really strongly about it moving forward, and it's based on some data and information and beliefs that you have that this is a good project to go after and do, but there's resistance to it from somewhere else. Where does that resistance come from? If that resistance comes from someone who knows something that you don't, and you pick up new information that changes your belief about this project, be willing to change your outward opinion of the project. What I'm trying to say here is that, like, have a strong opinion that we should move in this direction, and as soon as you get new data that says that you shouldn't, be willing to change your very strongly held opinion because it's loosely held. You're willing to change your strong opinion in a direction that actually makes sense for the organization to move forward now that you know this new piece of data. What this does is it keeps you from having like a dogmatic tie to some project or idea or belief, and instead it paints you as someone who's an effective decision maker and has the ability to stand by and behind their decisions right up until they have new data that demonstrates that they should go in a different direction, and that you are comfortable in saying we should go in this new direction because the data shows that. So it takes away this like strong connection to some idea, and instead it pins you back to this strong leadership core that you have. And that's how you avoid having politics get in the way of what you're doing. Because at the end of the day, it's not a political opinion that you're holding here. It's a decisive action that you're trying to take that best reflects what you understand the organization should do in that moment. Number 3 tip on avoiding office politics is to develop a transparent communication style. What does this mean? Well, this means you want to communicate openly. You want to communicate freely and clearly and openly. So you want to sometimes share your thinking that leads to a decision. I find more often that when I share my why with people, they understand how I came to a decision. And sometimes they will use that to help me understand a perspective that I didn't have, and they will add information to my equation, and I may change my opinion. So I find that the more transparent you are in your decision making, the easier it is for people to understand why you are going a direction, especially if it's tied back to those core values and beliefs that we talked about just a moment ago. You want to generally be just a genuine person. You want to build relationships and interactions with colleagues that are based on integrity and trust and things like that. So you want to mutual respect. You want to have mutual respect between you and your colleagues. When you are playing on a level above the politics, you're playing at the level of I respect you, game respects game, and all of that. Like, it's a whole different experience than trying to be down here in the muck and the mud amongst all the manipulators who will eat each other's young in order to move forward. So like, stay out of that, stay up here, be respected, and work with people that you respect. So that's where you want to be. You want to have these genuine connections up here. And number 4, while I'm saying that you should be transparent in your communication style, you want to be guarded around people that you have defined or have uncovered as being manipulative or manipulators. Finding covert narcissists or covert manipulators is very difficult. And I've run into a couple in my career. It's been very difficult to spot them for me and then deal with them once they're spotted, because they're really good at manipulating your emotions. And so when you are around these kinds of people, it's important that you hold back a lot of personal information from them, because they will use that personal information to manipulate the situation to their benefit and to your detriment. So when you recognize someone as being manipulative and you recognize them as being a political snake, then you want to be very guarded with the information that you share with them. Generally speaking, the best way to handle these kinds of people in an organization is to do what I call gray rock. Gray rocking is when you basically don't give them any emotional food, because manipulators thrive on manipulating the emotions of other people, manipulating the environment to their content. They enjoy the game. We hate it. They love it. That's why they play it, and they play it well. So when you find one of these people, the best thing you can do is limit the amount of information and emotion that you share with this person. When they say something that triggers you, you have a moment where you can choose how you react. And it's a split-second instant between the thing that they just said and your reaction to it. Split that moment out as wide as you can so that you take a moment to process, how do you want to react to this in order to best gain whatever it is that you need from that situation. So if someone says in a meeting something very negative about you in front of 30 people, you have a choice how you react. One is you can stand up and say, that's not true, that's terrible, I can't believe you would say that. And another is to take a moment and think about what the best response would be, even if the best response is to say nothing in the moment. The point is that when someone is doing that, they are trying to elicit an emotion from you, and they want that for whatever reason. So understand that sometimes the best way to deal with manipulative people who are using office politics is to ignore them and just gray rock and not give them the satisfaction that they want from that emotional altercation or interaction. And this took me a long time to learn in my career, which caused me a lot of pain and suffering throughout my career. The moment that I learned how to deal with manipulative people was the moment that I never worried about working with manipulative people again. This is an important one. I hope you take this away for what it is. And then finally, number 5 is to know and understand the culture of the organization in which you work. Some cultures really do actually empower office politics, the positive kind, where, like, for example, in an organization where I used to work, the decision to move forward on a bid was not left to just the sales team. It was a collaborative decision that was made between sales, operations, engineering, customer support, production, the supply chain folks, finance. All of these different parts of the organization would come together and agree, so say we all, this is the way to move forward. That's actually a positive form of office politics, because as the salesperson, what I would do is go around and have individual one-to-one conversations with all of the people in the organization that make that decision before we had the meeting, to listen for any questions or concerns, or someone might object. Like, you never want to go into a meeting not knowing what the result of that meeting is going to be, if you can avoid that. So having one-on-one conversations and influencing them to see things the way you want, but also asking them for what is your hesitation, what is your reservation, and considering that, and maybe even altering the plan based on those considerations. All of that is good stuff. That actually makes the decision better. So you want to take a step back and think about, like, sometimes office politics are a good thing. That is a good form of office politics. The stuff that we hate is the manipulative stuff, where someone is basically somehow bending people over and stepping on their backs and moving up through the organization, or getting a decision ramrodded through an organization without really letting people take the time to understand or object to the path that they're choosing. So that's the part that we want to try to avoid. In every organization, there are unwritten rules around these styles of communication. And I think that if you stay focused on the unwritten rules around how you influence people in an organization, and avoid any of the unwritten rules about how manipulators manipulate the situation in an organization, that's the dividing line between positive and negative office politics, if you will. And finally, I want to give you one last bonus tip. And it's not really a whole tip here, but you generally want to avoid any kind of gossip or office drama. Like, stay out of that. That's the stuff that happens in the lower decks, right? That's the individual contributors on the back dock smoking a cigarette and talking about, can you believe what someone in accounting did? Stay out of that stuff. Executives are up here thinking about the future. They're thinking about the direction. They're thinking about where the organization should go. They're not down here worrying about who Sally is dating or what John did last week. Like, let that stuff go and stay out of that stuff. You don't want to be caught up in politics. It happens. Just do your best to stay out of it. Have no opinion. When someone comes to you, can you believe what they did? Like, I don't really know much about that. And then change the topic or move away, right? Like, just stay out of it, because like the more you get pulled into it, the more likely you're going to get pulled onto one side or another of a political fight. And if you are neutral on these kinds of situations, they actually either don't want to pull you into it because they don't know what your reaction will be, or now both sides want to pull you in because they want to sway the neutral person to their belief. And that makes for an even more interesting dynamic for you, because now as someone who's neutral and is actually coveted by everybody, that just only elevates your level in the eyes of the entire organization anyway. Okay, all of this is kind of a frustrating thing to have to know and understand, but it is human culture. It is human nature to do these things. Just understand that, and it's really like mammalian culture, right? Like, penguins act this way. It's not just humans. This is just how societies work. And you have to understand that you can want to avoid all of the politics and the drama at work. It's always going to be there because there's always humans there. At the end of the day, we're all humans. We all have to learn how to live and work and function together in a very large and open society. And so sometimes you might find that the culture in which you operate just doesn't suit you. And in that case, maybe it's not that office politics are getting in the way. It's that you're not a good cultural fit for the environment you're in. In that situation, the best thing to do is to start figuring out what culture you need and then go find a culture that you can adopt and move into and be very comfortable and happy. And finally, I'll say that you don't need office politics to move ahead. What you need are other skills that will help you move forward in your career, like strategy, vision, effective communication skills, and so on. Those skills are what will actually move the needle in your career, more so than any political games. Because if you define yourself and everyone sees you as a highly effective executive doing a manager's job, at some point, something will change, either internally or externally for you. If you are focused on trying to win a promotion that is between you and one other person, and the other person is a manipulator, you're going to play fair. They're not. They may win the role depending on how the executives above you see the two of you. And that's just part of how the game works. In that case, if the manipulator or the political person gets the role, may not want to be in that culture in the first place anyway, or work for those particular executives anyway. So finding an opportunity outside that actually aligns better with your cultural values may be the way to move forward. If you have found yourself in a situation like this, where you're surrounded by office politics and you're miserable and you don't seem to know how to move forward in your career and you're trying to get to the executive level, I encourage you to watch this video here. This video explains everything you need to do step by step in order to move from the mid-career professional ranks to the executive level. It's a great video to kind of give you a framework on how you can make this transition from mid-career professional to executive. There's a bunch of tools in there. Hopefully this will be helpful to you. You're also welcome to reach out to me on Instagram at TomCoxVM, where I'd be glad to have a conversation with you there on how we can help you move to the next level as well. I hope this video was helpful. It was definitely a more informative type video than I normally do, but hopefully this is something that's helpful to you, and I will see you in the next one.